I'm honored to welcome and present Josh Pryor. He is passionate for both teaching and as a student of yoga. His dedication to the practice extends far beyond the mat to the thriving community he supports, pursuing study of the ancient text. Josh has held a fascination for metaphysics and philosophy since a young age and returned to his philosophical roots after a steadfast career in computer sciences. His approach is a light-hearted and undeniable enthusiastic, encouraging practitioner limitations of the physical body, translating into clear vision and altered states of awareness. Armed with a studious nature, he continued to deepen his knowledge and practice the likes of George Mahele in 2016 and Srivastav Swami in 2017. This education informs the operation of Ashtanga Yoga, Newcastle. Josh has studied and practiced alongside experienced Western yoga teacher, also works as a specialist in business management, systematic analysis, IT and marketing. He is an experienced commercial negotiator over the last 20 years. For the last 2 years, he has joined his attention to Yoga Australia. It is in his spirit that Josh speaks us today as a representative of the long-standing peak body of yoga in Australia, as a spokesman for the best intentions of the nation made richer by the teaching of the Indus Valley. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Josh Pryor.
It is indeed an privilege to welcome my brother Joshi from Australia. Most welcome, Joshi. And he'll be addressing us on the topic spiritual acceptance, embracing diversity and unity in spiritual communities. Whole stage is yours, Joshi. Most welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Tamar. Good to see you again, sir. And I hope to see you in February in Ujjain, I think, as well. Okay, let me talk about diversity and inclusivity in spirituality. The great texts of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, when they are faithfully translated and expertly interpreted, they give us a great deal of benefit. And truly, when we recognize the whole and our place in the whole as a center of consciousness, our behavior changes dramatically compared to what we see demonstrated usually in a materially focused society. In duality, we see commerce and possession, fear and struggle, greed, laziness, all these things. And when we understand non-duality properly, beyond the academic translations, beyond traditional translations, then our behavior will change and our natural ethics will kick in, become prominent. There's a beautiful clue in the name Shankaracharya. The proponents, the original proponent of non-duality. We know that he existed and that he wrote many, many wonderful texts, but that name, Shankara, is actually a placeholder. Has been used for centuries following his time. It's a placeholder. When a great text is found or written, and the author is not known, or the author does not want to be ascribed ownership, then the name Shankara is used. And this is a great demonstration of that non-dual nature, of the non-possessiveness of Advaita Vedanta, the non-authorship, and the fact that it's available and accessible to all of us without individual attribution. So let's go into a little bit more detail here. The fixation on physical existence, on material forms, is the trouble. It's the trouble that we have, and it's the key to liberation, to moksha. The fixation on the material forms, not the material forms themselves. So this idea that we should see the world as a dream, as an illusion, as not real, we should see the world as nothing more than the droppings of a crow, this sort of thing, is not helpful. This is not good. The world does exist. The material world does exist. It's real. It is the fixation on the world that needs to be altered. Nothing is going to be destroyed. And in fact, if you go and try to destroy the world, well, aside from being locked up in a prison, the ego will not allow you to do this. The ego is part of the world. The ego is very physical, and if it detects that you're going to somehow get enough weapons and money together to destroy all the other egos, it's not going to work. It's too unsafe. It's just not the solution. Intellectually and logically, it's not the solution either. The solution is unity, and the unity, not just with one another. It's not just we all get along together really well and shake hands and are very friendly. That's not enough. We need to understand that the physical reality is but 1% only of the true reality. Sat Chit Ananda is the true reality, is the vastness. It's the 99.9% of reality. Nama Rupa is very, very small piece. It is real. It is part of reality, but it is a small piece. And my question is, who amongst us spends 1% of our time looking at objects and talking to people and being involved in the material world? Only 1%. No. We all spend every moment of our waking lives looking at things, talking to things, hearing things, touching things, this sort of thing. The fixation of our culture on material existence is the problem. And that is what we seek to undo. Non-duality is extraordinarily empowering as well. By letting us know that we can remove our fixation on the material world, that it's okay to do so. I mean, that's kind of illegal. That's kind of culturally problematic almost. Maybe more so in the West. And there's so many obligations. No. To be a good person, you have to have a family, you have to have a degree, you have to have a job, career, all this sort of thing. All of these obligations that will keep you very, very busy. As soon as you wake up in the morning, you need to get to work. But the texts of non-duality tell you that no, actually there is something more important. Understanding the true reality, understanding the rest of reality, not just your car and your friends and your job. When we're given this permission, this invitation to explore the vastness of the non-physical world, in addition to the physical world, we're given choice, and that is empowering. That is by definition empowering. Someone is telling us, even if it's someone from the 14th century or the 8th century telling us, well, at least someone is telling us, giving us that option, and so we can pursue it at our own pace. When we are empowered that way, the more time you spend immersed in this idea, well, the more you realize actually that you have the choice. You actually do have the choice to experience being imprisoned in the material world, being fixated, being addicted, and being compelled to act only in the material world. This can be a tough one to confront, but you do have the choice. Most of us do, It is similar to the choice that we have around our state of mind, our emotions. Theoretically, we do have the choice. We do have the ability to change our mood, our emotions, anytime we like. This is fundamental. This is the nature of the brain, but it's also the nature of the vastness of the imagination, consciousness, Sat Chit Ananda. We do have that ability. We may feel from time to time that we don't have the ability, and depending on what's happening in our lives, we may be really disappointed with that situation. Nonetheless, theoretically, with practice, we can determine our mood, our intention, any time of day. The text I'm currently about to publish a new translation of is Drusha Viveka, and it's a wonderful small text, 14th century, so it's outside of the lifespan of Shankara, although it's often attributed to Shankara. And this text, in only 46 shloka, gives us excellent advice. It gives us a technique. Rather than just pretending that the world is not real and is useless and having the inconsistent cultural experience that brings, this text talks about the subtle body, anta karana, and it says, well, if you want to free yourself of the limited egoic physical restriction, rather than going straight to Brahman, let's go to the subtle body first, the intermediary. The subtle body is mostly non-physical, and it is the source of the ego. It is the source. It created the ego. Brahman creates subtle body creates ego. So let's use our ego to go to our subtle body. And subtle body is still associated with our individual form. So the practice then becomes simply reminding ourselves that there is a subtle body that we usually can't see, but it's ours. It's identified with this physical being, and it created the physical body and ego. In fact, the subtle body is very large. It's large in space and large in time as well. It existed before I was born. My subtle body existed before I was born, and my subtle body will exist after this body is dead. The subtle body exists in time as well. It's larger than 1 millisecond. It's able to see into the future and to remember the past. So the practice then is to remember that. If you wake up in the morning and immediately your phone is buzzing and beeping and time goes by, and then you go to bed at night and maybe you read a little text that reminds you, oh, that's right, the subtle body, I forgot all about it again. That's the 5,000th day in a row I've forgotten about my subtle body, because I'm fixated on the material world. It's so addictive. So the practice then is simply to somehow remember each day, each moment, that there is a subtle body. It's yours, and your physical body is very small and sits inside in the center of the subtle body. That practice alone is enough. This text does describe some other helpful practices that will make it happen quicker as well. Some specific practices. And Savikalpa Samadhi. And this is where we can get into more modern psychology and becomes very, very useful. So one of the forms of Savikalpa Samadhi is simply to understand how you're feeling right now. How are you feeling right now? Do you know how you're feeling? I feel good. Great. Okay, good. But maybe there's some more detail, and maybe it's good to ask yourself this question at another time. I mean, right now you're sitting watching someone talk to you, but what about when you're at school or at work or driving the car or in some other situation? Do you know how you're feeling? Do you know how specifically you're feeling? When there is an intense event, when there is an intense emotion, or when there is a negative situation like a state of anxiety and depression, how are you feeling? The tendency increasingly is to distract yourself from actually knowing how you're feeling. You might be able to answer the question, yes, I'm feeling depressed. Stop asking me. And actually, we want to paradoxically go into that feeling and to understand more and more and more about the feeling, not by talking to ourselves about it, but by sitting in the feeling in a state of stillness, quiet, so that the Satchitananda, the imaginative, non-physical components of that state, what caused that state, can be revealed to you. If you only ever feel like you are being affected by the state of anxiety, depression, fear, this sort of thing, if you are only ever being reactive to it, then it will keep coming back. And we want to know the source. We want to know the ingredients of this state. And we can do that ourselves simply by sitting in the state until the fear, the anxiety, whatever it is, pulls away and the true origin is known. This is one of the more practical techniques in this text. The other one is affirming, like sankalpa. It is determining who you want to remember yourself as, who you want to feel you are, sort of metaphysical understanding of your existence, and some of the more personal human-centric attributes you want to have as well. So knowing that I am the subtle body, I am a sphere of energy with a small physical body inside it. That's an example of something that I might want to remember and to affirm and to make part of my normal operating reality, rather than only occasionally reading a book and remembering. We can also embody characteristics on a human level that we find appealing and that we want to have a little bit more of. India obviously has many ways to help humans achieve this, and the devas, the deities of Indian culture are a great tool. And you want to have the wisdom and patience of Ganesha, this sort of thing, and the fearlessness of Kali. This is another way that we can do it. We can focus so deeply on the desired state of affairs, the desired energy that we wish to embody, focus on it with intense concentration until it becomes part of who we are. How long have I been talking for? It feels like I'm going to keep on talking for another 2 hours. Let's keep going. There's something else, more specifically on the topic of inclusivity and diversity. There's something that we must confront. There is inequity all over the place. We know that. There is neoconservative economic theory. There is class inequity. There are people born in difficult situations. Some countries are richer than other countries. Some families have trouble. But there is an continually emerging understanding of another inequity that's holding back the human race. And it's the disparity between freedom experienced by men and women. The patriarchal society, essentially. This is becoming more and more spoken of as various countries and various cultures bravely witness the reality. People speak up, and we realize, no, there is a fairly significant disparity, and it's the men in the room, including me, who really need to be willing to confront it. It's very easy for us to sort of gloss over these things. But certainly in the West, women are trained to prioritize the feelings of men over their own. This is so normal that it's like I say, easy to gloss over. It's been going on for far longer than capitalism and atomic bombs and all this sort of thing. It's been going on for so long. And while that inequity exists, I feel that our society, our world, will be limited, will always be ignoring part of its own truth and reality. There's an opportunity for us to create a new reality, create a new world in ourselves and in the external world of forms. Whatever we shrink, whatever we pull back from true awareness of the situation, we will always remain somewhat limited. Yeah. There are very visible forms of inequity in society, and I think one by one, piece by piece, we are bringing them, highlighting them, bringing them to our awareness, and it's up to all of us to be really, really honest. It's painful to see, it's painful to see people starving, and so we often don't see it. We just ignore it. We go somewhere else, and the inequity between the genders is a really good one, because you can't avoid it unless you want to only live with men or only live with women. You will see it. Every man should ask himself, how can there be love? How can my wife really, really love me if she was trained since being a child to even subtly, defer to me at all times, to prioritize my feelings over hers at all times? We want pure love. Thank you, Vikram. We want to know that we live in an honest fashion. And so it's time to embrace the teachings of non-duality, not in an academic sense, not in a masculine and traditional sense, but in a real sense that we can actually use. And then we won't need to have these conferences anymore, because we're living it every single moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother Josh ji. And thank you for reminding us that the problem is not exactly the world. World exists, but our clinging and our fixation is a concern. You mentioned it clearly that physical reality may be of absolute reality, but our focus is 99% on physical reality, and we don't focus on absolute reality. You suggested one to start with as Drag Drashya Viveka. You mentioned to start working on our Antahakarana, subtle body, and Smriti, or remembrance of the true nature, and Abhyas, practice. You suggested the tool you also mentioned, Samadhi, and you gave some tools: sit and watch our thoughts. Sankalpa, you suggested focus on what you want to be, and once we go beyond our subtle body, then all inequalities and diversities, the divisions, they stop to exist, and unity. So kind of you, Joshi, for addressing the audience. I'm sure that they will have their part of learning out of it. We are so much honored to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Meeting you in Ujjain.
Good. See you, mate.
On behalf of United Consciousness, I thank Mr. Josh Pryor for coming on to the platform of United Consciousness and sharing his views.